Hi, I'm Louise Platt at Spiral Bright Insight, and I wanted to do a quick mini reading of some of the key energies that are showing up in today's chart. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm a galactic and an intuitive astrologer, and I guess this might be in some ways like an energy check-in, but I am definitely going to show you the chart and talk through some of the aspects. If you are on my mailing list, you will receive my weekly Cosmic Currents newsletter. And I did talk a little bit about some of the aspects in the chart today. But what happens is every time I look at the chart, I see something new. And that's what has happened this morning. So we've got some really powerful alignments, which, I just want to really talk through. So, we'll look at the chart first, and then I'll come back and talk about what I think some of it all means. So let's just quickly look at this chart, which is for Friday, 21st. And this is, I've taken this Friday morning. And we've got the sun 29 degrees of Scorpio opposing Uranus, and that will become exact during the course of the day. Uranus, of course, is in retrograde motion in Taurus. Coming round, I missed this actually when I put this in, when I was doing my Cosmic Currents newsletter, because Persephone has only just moved into the final degree of Aquarius, 29 degrees 0 minutes. So it's not exact, but I'm going to call it because it feels intense. So this creates a T-square with Persephone at the final degree of Aquarius. And then, of course, we've got the sun in Scorpio is trining Neptune in Pisces. So before the sun moves into Sagittarius, which happens tomorrow, the 22nd of November, isn't it? So before the sun joins Mars and these other celestial bodies all hanging out in Sagittarius, it will form this opposition, exact opposition with Uranus, and form an exact trine with Neptune. Uranus is in an ongoing sextile with Neptune, so they are already in dialogue. And the other thing that really struck me today is the fact that Hecate, who is the goddess of the crossroads, magic, witchcraft, spells, liminal spaces, she is in a square to the nodal axis. So let me find my nodes here. So nodes at 15 degrees of Pisces, North Node, 15 degrees of Virgo, South Node. So that is creating another T-square. So we're going to come back to camera now, and I'm going to talk through what all this might mean. So there's quite a lot of anoretic energy in this chart with the sun. Where are we? We've got Sun, Uranus, Persephone, and Neptune all at 29 degrees. And if you know anything about astrology, you will know that the 29 degree is the anoretic degree. It is the crisis degree, the critical degree, because when a planet or point or angle is either sitting at that degree or reaches that degree in the chart or transit chart, there can be just a lot going on. In the transits in particular, as the sun has moved around to the final degree of Scorpio, and Scorpio season has not been it's been anything but easy this particular year, and I've talked about that recently, saying it feels like it's been going on forever. And actually, I'm still a little bit distressed to see that Mercury is still going to be in Scorpio. So even though the sun is moving into Sagittarius tomorrow, we've still got Mercury sitting in retrograde, moving back through that third decan of Scorpio. And I didn't point this out when I was showing you the chart, but Mercury is actually opposing Algol today. So we're definitely going to talk about that as well. But the anoretic degree, it is a critical degree because the sun, there will be a rush today to complete the Scorpio season, the Scorpio mission, if you like. And with Uranus in opposition there, I mean, oppositions by their nature can be quite challenging. This is not an easy aspect. There needs to be some integration, some mediation, some balance. This is about really being for the sun, which again, there's lots of different ways to interpret it, but the final degree of Scorpio, sun there shining a light. This feels like there is a lot coming up today from the depths. We are, at this culmination of our shadow work, with the backdrop of the energy of the 9 kind of supporting this, which is all about shedding, letting go, eliminating, purging, releasing, completing. With the energy of the snake, we're still in the year of the snake. That kind of almost, adds another layer of depth and an intensity to this. So it's like, oh my goodness. And then with Uranus, in opposition, Uranus is in retrograde in Taurus. So, normally Taurus would try to bring some stability to the Scorpio energy, because the Scorpio is all about, letting go and releasing and doing that shadow work, which can be challenging. Taurus in opposition is there to kind of give this peace and presence and stability and comfort. But Uranus in Taurus isn't interested in that, so it feels quite stabilizing. But because Uranus is retrograde, it feels like this destabilizing type energy is actually going to start within. It feels like an inside job, and I've been talking about this quite a lot. We are here to make changes, we are here to shift, we are here to evolve. But for so many of us, we've been sort of focused or almost distracted with what is going on in the outside world, and it's like waiting for all these changes and shifts and evolution to take place out there. But I think that that is a distraction, because when we're focused on that, we forget to look inside. But this feels very much like, oh no, the changes and the breakthroughs are starting within each of us. So there's definitely kind of stuff bubbling up from the inside, the secrets coming to light. And yes, I'm feeling this is going to be at a collective level, mainstream and world stage type affair. And obviously there's lots of things bubbling away, that in the mainstream that, people are waiting to be presented and to be revealed and exposed and disclosed and all of that. So, yes, everything does work at different layers and different levels, but it does feel that things are coming to light and that are going to potentially create a shock wave today. Now, the square with Persephone is interesting because it's in Aquarius, the final degree of Aquarius, and we've obviously got Pluto sitting at the other end of Aquarius, almost like, he's doing his own digging into society, into the collective, into humanity. This is very much shadow work with both Pluto at 1 degree, Persephone at 29 degree. It's like almost like all eyes on whatever is coming up is affecting us at a collective level, and there is really nowhere to hide, is what it feels like. Everybody is going to be affected in some way, and it feels, again, there's so many different layers and levels and perspectives to this. But this is a time when the shadows, the secrets, the revelations that are coming to light are going to affect everybody at some level, even if you're not buying into it, even if you are not kind of being, I don't know, sucked in, or even if it's not your story. It's the shockwave that is kind of triggered, that moves through humanity and through the collective, because we are all connected. We are all going to feel it. I hope that makes sense. So even if you're not someone, and again, who knows what it's going to be, and everybody has got their own perspective and their own understanding and their own anticipation of what is coming. There's no kind of every all the posts I see at the moment is like, oh, something is big is coming, and yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. What is it? And when Uranus is involved, there's often a real plot twist, something that we didn't see coming. And again, that just, kind of it feels destabilizing, but it feels also that it was always meant to be. Because the other thing I'm feeling with the 29 degree, particularly with Neptune at 29 degrees, it feels very karmic. Neptune is at the final degree of the zodiac. So, you know, everything has been washed away, everything is being dissolved. And what's beautiful with the trine between the Sun and Neptune is that as this kind of the silt, you know, is Uranus is kind of shaking up this fixed water, so all the cloudiness is kind of moving, and it's kind of it's moving all the silt that may have collected on the bottom in the depths where we couldn't see it. It's coming up to the surface, but as it comes up, Neptune in Pisces is literally washing it away for us. So it is very cleansing. Neptune in Pisces feels linked to the media, to illusion, to certain stories and narratives that have been created to perhaps distract us or to keep us in a bubble where there isn't clarity. But again, that feels like this is kind of, you know, up for to be addressed. So yeah, there's it does feel like narratives are collapsing and dissolving, and because there's just nothing to hold on to. You know, Uranus is in Taurus, so yes, this is an earth sign, but he's kind of breaking everything down. You know, that there is nothing to hold on to, and we need to be prepared to just move through that and trust that that is part of the process. So with Persephone in Aquarius, you know, her archetype and her story is of being abducted, taken into the underworld against her will, but it is through that process and through, if we think of the underworld as representative of our shadow, also, you know, our psyche, you know, the parts of us that perhaps we haven't dared to look at or we haven't been able to look at. And obviously there is this kind of almost like against our will type, you know, repeating phrase here. We might not want to look at what has been hiding in the depths, you know, what humanity is capable of, what, you know, the corruption, the power, all of that. But we have to. And as with Persephone, it is by going into and experiencing that descent that we can then rise. And, you know, Persephone in the underworld comes into her own. She becomes queen of the underworld. It's not what she expected. You know, it wasn't her trajectory, but it is almost the making of her, because she finds herself. And, you know, she is also a symbol of someone that kind of has a foot in both worlds. So she's a bridging energy. You know, she is comfortable in the shadow, but equally comfortable on the surface in the light as well. And it's about bridging those. And I feel this is really what we are being asked to do. We cannot continue by ignoring what is in the shadows, because, again, this is something I say regularly, but shadow is just a different expression or aspect of light. So it's about, we cannot continue to ignore parts of ourselves that we have dared not look at. You know, we can't continue to ignore things that go on in society, to turn the other cheek, or, you know, to live in ignorance. And they say ignorance is bliss. Yes, sometimes it is. And it's almost like we might be shaken out of our state of bliss, if indeed we are in that state, for some time, but it's a necessary part of the process. And of course, also through this, it feels, because it's so collective, because it is Aquarius energy that Persephone is navigating, and she's going to be moving into Capricorn after her, she's moving into Capricorn next week. Just checking my dates there. So, and that is going to be a whole other energy, which I will probably talk about separately. But, you know, this is, it's something that brings us together. That, you know, reminds us that we are all connected. And of course, with Neptune in Pisces as well, there's really strong unity, consciousness, energy coming through, which again is almost holding the space for whatever the sun is finding and bringing to light. So it's there's definitely, with Uranus, it feels like we are at a breaking point. We have to go into the depths. Truth is a non-negotiable. It cannot be avoided. And it's there's definitely a collapse of something going on, but it may not be in the outside world. It may be narratives that you have been holding on to, that you have been very invested in, that maybe apply to you or to people in your close circle that are collapsing, that are falling away. And sometimes, as I've said, I keep repeating myself, this change, this shift is an inside job. So if there's parts of you or the self that you have been refusing to look at, that you've been fearful of, that you've been avoiding, that you've been ashamed of, all the ick, this is this is the day for it. So and I know that I'm also on a path where I am really going into a lot of my own shadow as well. I think we all are, but I'm trying to do it consciously. And it's not easy, but it is also very liberating. And I'm also being reminded here now to share that when things come and they hit you, often there can be a really strong emotional response. And I had this last night. I was looking at my chart. I was looking at an upcoming opposition that I've got with natal Atlantis in my chart, with transiting Atlantis and other aspects that was forming. And I started to feel into what that might mean. And I knew I hit a chord of truth, a sore spot, because the tears just came involuntary, almost like whoosh, a wave of emotion. And that for me is like, yeah, I've actually got something here, this is significant, and this is something that I need to possibly go in even deeper into. So again, with the strong water energy, that is also likely. And sometimes, it's the emotion. We can't keep a lid on it, is what is coming through. We can't continue to bury it and ignore it. We have to express it. It has to come out. The tears have to flow, and also that joy as well, but the anger, the fear, whatever it is, but the emotions have to be, they have to come out. They have to spill out. Let's just quickly talk about Algol and Medusa, because Mercury in retrograde at 26 degrees of Scorpio is opposing Algol, which is Medusa's severed head. And I've talked about Algol in quite a few other videos. So if you're interested in Medusa and her archetype, I invite you to go and search for those in my YouTube sort of playlists. Or in my back catalogue, whatever it's called. But this feels powerful as well, because Mercury in retrograde, again, this is an inside job. This is inner understanding, inner things coming to light, secrets coming to light about the self, which help to shift our perspective, which shift our mindset, which give us a new level of awareness. And also perhaps, I'm thinking now, Mercury is the voice as well. So perhaps we're able to talk about it. It's something that we haven't been able to talk about before. But it's also, because it's a retrograde, it's like we have to be able to talk about it to ourselves before we can go out. So it's like admitting the truth to the self feels important. And with Algol sitting there, Algol represents so many things. She represents the part of ourselves that we fear most. This is really looking at the truth, seeing ourself, the truth of ourself reflected in Medusa's eyes. Will we be petrified? Will we be immobilized? Or will we have the strength to actually look? Are we going to believe the narratives of, is she really a monster? There's so many different themes that come through with this star. But Algol also represents cutting off what we no longer need. So again, there may be ideas, mindsets, narratives that are internal programs and ideas and stories that are running in our inside world, in our inside psyche, awareness that we are ready to let go of, sever, completely cut off. And it may be, but it also requires us to see the truth of a situation as well. And perhaps, having the courage to look at things that maybe, you thought would be so difficult to face up to, so difficult to talk about, so difficult to explore and to navigate, that again, you sort of put it in a box on a shelf or buried it away. It feels like this is the time when that is also coming to light. So again, it's going to be different for all of us. Seek support, if it is really challenging, reach out. and seek support. You know, don't feel that you have to go through anything on your own, but equally it is the time because of all this anoretic degree energy sort of playing out. You know, we are letting go, and it feels like we've almost come to a crunch point where, yeah, this is it. So Hecate is in a square to the nodal axis. We have to talk about Hecate. So she is also very linked to Persephone, actually. She is a goddess that is very comfortable in the underworld. So she is all about really getting us to explore our shadow, to explore the psyche, to sort of come into a state of introspection, because she knows that is where the wisdom comes from, and that's how we can get our deepest insights when we do go into the depths. And she is in a square to the nodal axis today, so there's a real, it feels like a turning point in so many ways today. She's the goddess of the crossroads, so she will stand at the crossroads helping. You know, you can almost see as you stand by her, she illuminates the past, the present, and the future, and she is kind of there to help us when we feel as if we are at a choice point. She guides us to use our instinct, you know, to really step into that intuitive I don't know, spiritual perspective potentially. She's also linked to magic and spells, and by default, therefore, witchcraft, because she's the divine feminine energy, but the shadow feminine. She also kind of brings in all this wisdom that is gained through a lifetime of the feminine, the female journey. So the maiden, that naivety, that purity, the matriarch, you know, the mother energy, she who nurtures, who holds space, and then the crone, that wise old, you know, female woman who has seen it all, and she has got so much to share. And Hecate brings all of these three elements together, and actually the number three is significant with Hecate, and because she is said to have had three tools to help her. She had a dagger which cutting away illusion, helping us to, you know, again, you know, get rid of all the narratives that are just not based in truth, the key that helps to unlock the secrets, unlock the truth potentially, and the rope as well, which again can be, you know, interpreted in many ways, but I see it as the umbilical cord. So kind of, you know, connecting us to that life force energy and what it is that we need to keep sustained and nourished. So she holds the torch for us when we are in that underworld, when we are facing our fears. She went down to help Demeter look for Persephone in the myth. She is all about facing our fears, but she knows that that is how we reclaim our power, and this is very much an energy of becoming, you know, and trusting your intuition, trusting the cycles of life, trusting that, you know, we often have to go into the liminal spaces where things do not make sense, where there is not a bright light necessarily to illuminate and show us the way. But again, it's about trusting the path, and Hecate is guiding us. And as she kind of creates this T-square with the nodal axis in Sagittarius, this is an energy of breaking free, of seeing the bigger picture, of stepping into that higher level of consciousness. So whatever is playing out, she's almost like, yes, you know, this is shadow work in almost an extreme, but we need to be able to see the bigger picture, and she helps us to do that because she's also a space holder as well as a guide. So this is, you know, she shows up when we're in times of transition and transformation, but she knows that the way through is actually by going in, and the way to the light requires the path through the shadow, and there's no way to avoid it. So we are at a choice point. You know, will we remain sort of attached to our comfort zone, you know, and in South Node in Virgo, allow all those narratives, those stories, you know, the mind to almost rule the show? Or will we step forward and sort of start to embrace the Pisces energy, step into a more unified field, you know, trust in our higher self, have faith, have compassion, but also be able to let go of needing to understand everything and just trust in the process and trust in this whole period of releasing and completion as we get ready to, you know, this final purge before we move into the new, which comes very strongly through in 2026. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm wishing you an amazing day. Embrace it. You know, although it feels heavy, it also feels really exciting. And it's like, you know, we have got all this way through Scorpio season. We're still standing, I hope, for most of us. I mean, we might have a few, you know, battle wounds and scars and yeah, just like, oh. But you know, we're still standing, and we will continue to, and we will continue to push through, and we will continue to hold the light as well, because that's why we are here. So yeah, strongest of the strong, as Blossom Goodchild always says, and I have to say I do love her content. So I will be back, but thank you for watching. Comment, you know, if you feel called to, you know, and I appreciate everybody who does, but equally, you know, just even liking the video helps to, you know, share it more widely. So yeah, have an amazing day. Lots of love.